Do we need a Marshall Plan for Central America? I mean, this all kind of wraps up with Kirsten Nielsen being kicked out of the Department of Homeland Security. Apparently, she went into this meeting with Donald Trump over the weekend to, well, actually, nobody's really sure what the goal of the meeting was. But she went into this meeting, and he apparently started yelling at her, and she had brought with her a letter of resignation that she was going to present to him if he was apparently as obnoxious as he normally is. And we've heard this story from lots and lots of people, pretty much everybody who has spoken, who has ever been in the White House, that he likes to scream, he likes to shout obscenities, he likes to belittle people, he likes to humiliate them. And, you know, that's just like the price of being able to have your name go down in history as a member of the cabinet of a president of the United States. You know, you want to be up there with Madison and Hamilton and you know, and whatnot. Well, Madison was also a president, but, you know, Hamilton, Burr. Yeah, that's the price you have to pay. So anyhow, she went in, she brought her letter of resignation, and Trump started yelling at her. And before she could even say, I quit, and pull the letter out, he said, you're fired. And then he tweeted it before she could release her letter to the press. You know, she's walking out of her office or out of the office or, you know, something close to that. He tweets it. So what's going on here? Well, it turns out that she's just not being brutal enough. The Trump administration, after John Kelly and Stephen Miller came up with this brilliant idea, and Kirsten Nielsen, of course, was John Kelly's protege. She used to work for him over at the Pentagon, and he brought her along, and then she became DHS secretary. Their brilliant idea was people are coming here from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador because they are fleeing basically brutality in those three countries. Those three countries were so badly broken by Elliott Abrams and his buddies in the Reagan administration. Elliott Abrams, the same guy who was convicted during the Iran-Contra investigations and then was pardoned by President George Herbert Walker Bush at the recommendation of Bill Barr, who's now our Attorney General. He was the Attorney General back then, too, in 1992. Elliott Abrams, who was pardoned, convicted war criminal, right, who was pardoned, is now in charge of our Venezuela policy. So expect a war in Venezuela any day now. But in any case, what happened was we broke these three countries. We deposed a democratically elected president in one. We supported a right-wing government in another. We helped build death squads in a third. And all three of these countries, now, you know, the country that's actually closest to us, south of Mexico, is Belize. But Belize back in the 80s, when Reagan was president, was still on the tail end of their whole English colonial thing, sort of like Canada was over the last 50 years or so. And there were still British troops in Belize. So Reagan didn't mess with Belize. Belize is doing just fine, thank you very much. Cruise ships go there, right? It's a vacation destination. Not so much for Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. We broke these countries. So now as refugees are fleeing these countries, literally fleeing for their lives, coming to the United States, families. This is not you know, your 20-something, working age, good, you know, healthy young man looking for a job. That's who used to come across our border. People like that have not come across our border since 2008. We've actually seen mostly Mexicans leaving the United States in larger numbers than they're coming into the United States, people who are looking for work. And in fact, that might be one of the reasons why our unemployment rate is so low right now, is because so many, quote, illegal immigrants have actually left this country. But the people who are coming to this country are families, mostly mothers and their children. And so the policy that Kirsten Nielsen and John Kelly and Donald Trump and mostly Stephen Miller, Steve Miller is like the white supremacist in chief in the White House. This guy who was like just has this weird high school history of racism and just bizarre humanness. The guy who puts spray hair on his head before he goes on Face the Nation. This guy came up with this policy of let's just brutalize these families, these women and children, and the word will spread down to Central America that, you know, America's policy is just terrible. You don't want to go there, and fewer people will come. Well, they brutalized them. They tore apart Thousands. We got something like 13,000 children being held right now in cages in prisons in the United States. Private prisons, very profitable business for buddies of the Trump administration. They're being paid hundreds of dollars per day per child to lock them in cages. So we did that. Many of these children have been lost into the system. God only knows how many have been sold or traded or bartered or something on the National Child Exchange, whatever it is. I mean, it's truly bizarre. They literally can't find many of these children. No idea where they are. And so the message of our brutality got down to Central America, and they were like, you know, I'd rather have my kid in foster care. I'd rather be sitting in jail than be dead, because that's what so many of them are facing, or be tortured or be raped. I mean, these are the things that these people are facing, literally. So what's Trump's response? Well, the 2020 election is coming, and him and Stephen Miller have decided that they know that the white racist vote is what got them in. So the winning message is going to be, brown people are coming from south of the border. It's a screaming epidemic. We got to do something. Now, the fact of the matter is the number of brown people crossing the border is, yeah, it's higher now than it was a year ago, but it's radically lower. It's like 1/5 of what it was in 2000. It's a relatively tiny number. There is not a crisis at the southern border, but Donald Trump needs one. He needs a crisis in order to get himself reelected, in order to activate the racist vote, the white supremacist vote, the Stephen Miller vote. So how do we do that? How do we create a crisis south of the border? Hey, let's cut off foreign aid, the aid that we're providing to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador to support democratic institutions. Let's cut off the aid to support their courts and police systems. Let's cut off the aid to support their programs of assistance for farmers who are being pushed off their farms because global warming is literally causing desertification. What used to be farmlands are becoming deserts in Central America right now. Literally, global warming is part of this problem, although the biggest part of the problem is, what Reagan did and Elliott Abrams, who's now in charge of our Venezuela policy, did back in the 80s. So now they've got this Sophie's Choice program that they're floating. Right? The Sophie's Choice program is, okay, you are arrested with your children. You're put in detention for 20 days. Now, the law says after 20 days, you can't be detained anymore with your children. So we're going to tell you, okay, you've got a choice. You can continue being detained with your children voluntarily, which the law provides for, or you can surrender your children and we'll find another home for them. We'll, put them into the adoption market. Maybe we'll sell them. I don't know. We'll put them in foster care. We'll send them off to children's jails. I don't know what we're going to do with them, but this is your choice. Right? It's Sophie's Choice. This is obscene. So my thought is what we need is a Marshall Plan for these three countries. We broke these three countries. We broke Europe during World War II. Now, you could say, our breaking of Central America was something that was entirely voluntary, essentially. It wasn't necessary. Reagan did this because these countries were going socialist, right? I mean, the big crime, as I recall, of Guatemala was that they were building out something like a Medicare for All program, God forbid, and Social Security. We can't have socialism in this hemisphere, so we had to take them down. So we destroyed these countries. Well, we destroyed Germany during World War II, too. And what did we do after World War II? We loaned them the money to rebuild. We gave them grants. We gave them loans. We didn't do the rebuilding ourselves. We let them do it so that they built local industries to help rebuild. We should be doing the same thing with Central America. But no, Donald Trump has cut off all the funding for Central America. Why? Because that's going to create more of a crisis. And over the course of the next year, see, he needs 1 million refugees at the border in September and October of 2020 in order to win the election in November, in order to convince even the white people with a little bit of latent racism that, oh my God, they're coming. This is what he's doing. This is absolutely obscene. And we should be talking about this. You know, a couple of the Democratic presidential candidates have talked about we need a Marshall Plan for Central America. I absolutely think we do. Meanwhile, Kirsten Nielsen, I started out by telling you how she got fired. And according to the law, I mean, literally the laws, U.S. Code 6 U.S. Code 113 subset G. The law says that if the Secretary of Homeland Security leaves her job, which is what just happened, or will happen on Wednesday, actually. If she leaves her job, her second in command becomes the person in charge, becomes the new Secretary of Homeland Security. Well, the second in command job has never been filled. Donald Trump, doesn't give a rat's ass about bureaucracies or democracies or government. And so it goes to number 3. The number 3 is the Undersecretary of Management, Claire Grady. I don't know anything about Claire Grady except that Claire, and I'm assuming this is a female Claire, that she is a long-term employee of the department. In other words, she's the logical choice, right? She knows what she's doing. She's been there for a while. But Trump is not going to do that. He says he's going to put Kevin McAleenan. I think it's McAleenan. Anyhow, he's going to put him in charge. And temporarily, because he needs to get a real hard-nosed guy in there. Right? Somebody who's willing to do more than just brutalize children. I don't know, what are we going to start firing squads? Well, we did shoot tear gas across the border.